Tuli, thank you very much for joining us and looking beautifully African as you do so. Maybe let's start there. I mean, the Tuma Mina narrative has taken off with quite aplomb. I think a lot of South Africans latching onto it, including the associated New Dawn. Put that into context for us. What does it actually mean in the broader narrative of the continent?
I think in the broader narrative of the continent, one, it actually means that as Africans, we need to actually be well versed about our own continent. We need to understand what opportunities exist. We need to actually be the ambassadors of Africa and be able to sell Africa amongst each other as Africans as well, but most importantly with global investors. I think Africa is a market that is actually the next terrain for growth for a lot of investors.
So let me jump in there, Tuli. We've seen a lot of international players, whether we're looking at the retailers or others, going it on their own, coming into the African market, whether we're talking about H&M or Zara. What needs to be true for international investors to choose to partner with local players on the ground versus just penetrating the market and taking the dividends all for themselves?
I think you can look at it in two ways. I think one, if you're actually in it for the long term, you cannot avoid partnering with local players. They understand the market well. They will actually take you to places where you cannot easily go in there yourselves. But on the other hand, I think for our governments and for our business partners to actually be able to take advantage of these opportunities, one, they need to actually adhere to very strong governance. I think governance has actually been the buzzword. And secondly, I think, they need to have consistent policies. They need to have policies that speak to one another as countries. Obviously, investors look for size and scale if they want to actually go into big investments with local partners for the long term. And I think the regional trading bloc, whether it's East Africa Community, Southern Africa, West Africa, and so forth, needs to look at ways in terms of streamlining policies to be more attractive to investors. So
a very quick one. I mean, policies are absolutely fantastic, but we have to make sure that it makes business sense.
Absolutely.
So how do we ensure that local players are positioning themselves in an increasingly attractive way to be the natural choice of partner for international investors?
I think one of the key things that local players need to actually do, they need to find that sweet spot, the gap in which international players cannot actually play in. For instance, you made an example of the retail sector. I think one of the key things is actually sourcing local material to actually provide to your likes of H&M and so forth. For every industry, there is that one particular soft spot or niche that local players need to find and actually carve for themselves in order to be part of big global supply chain stores.
Thank you very much, Tuli. And of course, that's Tuli Phiri. She is, of course, giving us some insights around how local players can insert themselves in global value chains